So friends, the month of July started with Donald Trump's law enforcement agencies violating the rights of immigrants, and the month of July ended with Donald Trump's Department of Justice cozying up to and doing favors for a convicted child sex trafficker. It's hard to see how any honest, ethical, self-respecting lawyer would be willing to continue to work for the Department of Justice. And friends, at this rate, the institution as we know it may very likely implode. Friends, here is a brief recap of the legal stories for the month that was July 2025. So friends, there's a new legal development in the Abrego Garcia case. I would go so far as to call it a twist. And it's a legal development that highlights just how out of control, untrustworthy, and lawless some of Donald Trump's executive branch agencies are. When we stand up, when we speak out, when we fight back, when we assert our rights, including in court, we win. When we fight the monster rather than feeding the monster, we win. So we have to keep standing up, speaking out, holding strong, rallying, marching, protesting, all peacefully, and asserting our rights in court. So friends, here's a good news story as we roll into the holiday weekend. Even after that idiotic Supreme Court ruling, you know the one, no nationwide injunctions for you, American people, even if Donald Trump violates your constitutional rights. Well, guess what, friends? Federal court judges are still pushing back, still ruling against, still rejecting Donald Trump's abusive, corrupt, and lawless schemes. So friends, first off, happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. I'd like to do something a little different in today's Justice Matters video. So at least for the moment, let's put behind us talk of alligator Alcatraz and UFC cage match fights on the White House lawn and military birthday parades that dear leader throws for himself. And let's talk about independence from a wannabe king. You know, friends, we fought for our independence before, didn't we? And we won. We fought to keep the republic together, to keep the union together previously, and we won.
What's useful to know there, that was in 2022 that Mark Esper revealed this information. But the discussion took place in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. That was the same protests and the same concern about putting troops on the streets that started the Orders Project. They didn't know at that time that this suggestion had even been made, but it shows that the concern was real. And as you're saying, right now, we're back there. And we don't have somebody like Mark Esper. We have somebody like Secretary Hegseth, who doesn't appear to be willing to say no.
Because let's go from the duty to obey to what happens if they get something that is potentially an unlawful order.
We refer to some orders as being patently unlawful. It's obvious, there's no question. The perfect example is to shoot civilians. You can't give that order, and if you are given that order, you can't follow through.
So friends, in a court hearing on Monday in Abrego Garcia's deportation case, the presiding judge, Judge Paula Sines, said that trying to get a straight answer out of Donald Trump's DOJ lawyers was like, quote, nailing Jell-O to the wall. Judge Sines also went on to tell those lawyers that they are, quote, creating chaos. So friends, we've just had 3 legal developments that I think can accurately be characterized as the good, the bad, and the ugly. So friends, in her daily column, Letters from an American, historian Heather Cox Richardson poses the following question: who is in charge? Because watching Donald Trump's inability, not unwillingness, but inability to answer a simple, straightforward question, a question that a person repeats twice for him, makes it pretty clear he's not in charge. Hell, he's not even in charge of his own faculties. Well, friends, there he goes again. Donald Trump adds a couple more names to his enemies list, with his Department of Justice apparently now gearing up to criminally investigate former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey. So friends, in the wake of the Supreme Court telling federal judges that they can't use nationwide injunctions to protect we the people against Donald Trump's unconstitutional revocation of birthright citizenship, federal judges have found a new way to protect the people: class action lawsuits. So here's something I'd like to focus on today. Federal judges are protecting us, protecting we the people, against a president of the United States who abuses his power and acts unconstitutionally. Federal judges are protecting the people against Donald Trump's abuses. And that, my friends, is a point of light.
What advice would you give, if any, to military members who are now being put in this difficult and potentially perilous situation when they're injected into the American schools to do things they've never been trained to do?
Yeah, well, I think for both of us, I served under Democrats and Republicans, and I disagreed with both parties at times on policy positions, but I never questioned that the commander-in-chief, Republican or Democrat, had my back.
So friends, in connection with the immigration raids in California, we've all seen the videos, ICE agents chasing men through produce fields and parking lots. Well, in connection with those raids, a federal judge just ordered the Trump administration, DHS, ICE, to stop acting unconstitutionally. Well, friends, under a cloak of secrecy, with no opinion, no rationale, and no support in the law, 6 justices of the Supreme Court overturned what a trial court judge did, what appellate court judges did, and those 6 justices just gave the green light to Donald Trump to close the Department of Education, even though the Constitution provides that only Congress can establish or shut down an executive branch agency, a department of the federal government. Fortunately for us all and for history, Justice Sotomayor wrote a dissenting opinion exposing the unconstitutionality, the lawlessness of what those 6 justices just did. So friends, I haven't done a video on this topic yet, but with everything swirling around Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, including Trump supporters turning on him and him turning on them, let's talk about where things actually stand procedurally, and then let's try to separate fact from fiction, truth from propaganda. So friends, at a time when Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are trying to bury all things Jeffrey Epstein related, they just fired a superb career federal prosecutor who handled the Jeffrey Epstein case as well as the case of Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, a prosecutor who likely has as much information about Epstein and his client list, among other matters, as pretty much anybody at the Department of Justice. Does that sound like a smart move to you? Firing that superb career federal prosecutor while trying to bury all things Epstein related? Because it's up to us, friends. It's always up to us. It's not up to any one judge or one prosecutor or one politician. You know who will save us. You know who will save us. We will save us. We will save us. So friends, welcome to the ongoing Donald Trump Pam Bondi reality show that I guess could be titled The Epstein Files. What you're seeing them do right now is all for show. As Attorney General, Pam Bondi has every reason to know every single word contained in the Jeffrey Epstein grand jury transcripts. And frankly, those transcripts only make up a very small fraction of the Epstein files. And friends, if Pam Bondi knew those transcripts contained evidence, information, testimony that incriminated Donald Trump, do you think that, first of all, Donald Trump would be demanding their release? And second, would Pam Bondi be filing a motion with a judge in New York seeking their release? Really? Your top line thought regarding the state of our Department of Justice, which was my beloved professional home for nearly a quarter of a century, and I don't recognize it these days. But what are your top line thoughts about DOJ?
I mean, as someone who's on the outside, who's been just working in hospitals my entire career, I am deeply distressed and disturbed by this erosion of what I always thought would be is the bedrock of the freedom that we all love as Americans. We're seeing just unprecedented attacks and political usage of the Department of Justice. And, I don't think I ever thought I would see corruption run this deep.
So friends, I'm sure you've heard by now that Donald Trump filed a lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal, essentially claiming defamation. And I think he's seeking something like $11 bazillion. I could be a little off on the amount there. But a judge has now been assigned to preside over the case that Donald Trump filed, and who that judge is tends to suggest that karma is alive and well. So friends, the insanity and depravity of the Trump administration and the Department of Justice continues with news that the number 2 guy at DOJ, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, will be paying a little visit to Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, to, see who she might be able to implicate. Now, there is no reporting as to whether Todd Blanche will or will not discuss with Maxwell at this little sit-down the possibility of a presidential pardon. So friends, we have not one, but 2 significant developments in the Jeffrey Epstein matter. First, the Wall Street Journal isn't backing down, it's doubling down. And second, a federal judge in Florida just denied Pam Bondi's, the Department of Justice's motion to release the Epstein grand jury transcripts in the federal case in Florida. So Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney and current political appointee Todd Blanche is having a sit-down with Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Friends, do you know in how many ways this cozy little meeting is an effing joke? So friends, federal district court judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Emmett Sullivan, just schooled the Trump administration, telling Trump and company to, quote, stop violating the law, close quote. So friends, as the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell debacle continues to take up all the oxygen, do you realize that Donald Trump and his third-rate DOJ lawyers just got their asses kicked in federal court 3 times over the past 24 hours? Points of light, friends. Points of light. Let's talk about that. So, friends, as Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell tries to make one last-ditch attempt to get the Supreme Court to overturn her criminal conviction, there's a new twist. We've heard a lot about the Epstein files, the demands to release the Epstein files. Well, now Senator Dick Durbin of the Senate Judiciary Committee is demanding the Department of Justice turn over the Maxwell tapes. So friends, Donald Trump and Pam Bondi have taken gaslighting to ridiculous new lows. Wait until you hear about a complaint that Pam Bondi had one of her flunkies at the Department of Justice file against the chief judge of federal district court in Washington, D.C. So friends, it's a dark day for the quality of the federal judiciary, with Emile Beauvais being given the thumbs up by Senate Republicans to join a federal appeals court after Beauvais was credibly accused of telling DOJ lawyers that they should tell federal courts F you and defy court orders. And in a related story, Attorney General Pam Bondi seemed to take Beauvais' advice by refusing to comply with a federal court order directing her to inform the court if the Department of Justice had contacted Epstein's victims before filing a motion to unseal the grand jury transcripts in the Epstein case. You know, friends, the Department of Justice is a flailing and failing institution. So friends, are you sitting down? Yet another lawyer who was willing to try to help Donald Trump steal the 2020 presidential election has been recommended for disbarment. Who now? This guy, Jeffrey Clark. Only the best people. Let's talk about that, because justice matters.
It's for sure. Justice matters. Justice matters. Justice matters.